In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in black and white emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening and welcome. Welcome home to America in Black and White. I'm your host, Charles King, and tonight we're stepping into something special, something that deserves more than just your attention. Tonight, we ask for your full presence. This is season 4, and if you've been rocking with us since the beginning, you already know that every season, every episode, we come here to do something that this world desperately needs more of. We come here to tell the truth. We come here to tell the whole story, not just the highlight reel, not just the pain, but the full, rich, complicated, beautiful, resilient story of Black life in America. And tonight, episode 101. Now, you know that 101 means in academic tradition, 101 is where it all begins. It's the introductory course, the foundational class, the one that sets the table for everything that comes after. But in the tradition of Black excellence, 101 is a new level, a new chapter. It's a signal that we've graduated from the basics and we're ready to go deeper, farther, higher, and that is exactly where we're going tonight. The themes woven through this episode, resilience, mental health, community service, and the power of transformation, are not abstract concepts. They are lived realities. They are the stories of people in your community, perhaps people in your own family, perhaps your own story. And it is long past time we treated them with the reverence they deserve. Before we bring our incredible guests on the screen tonight, I want to acknowledge our Black History influence for episode 101. A woman whose name you know, but whose courage you may not yet fully understand, Rosa Parks. On December 1st, 1955, Rosa Parks did not only simply refuse to give up a seat on a bus, she refused to give up her dignity. She refused to accept a world that told us, that we were somehow worth less. Her quiet strength, her unshakable resolve, and her willingness to say enough in the face of an entire system designed to break her down, that is the spirit that animates everything we do here on American Black and White. And tonight, that spirit is alive, well in the life and work of our extraordinary special guest. His name is Jamarne McGill. He is a community advocate, a mental health champion, a trainer, a mentor, and a man whose personal story will move you, challenge you, and inspire you to look at your own life through a new lens. He has walked through the fire, real, personal fire, and he has chosen every single day to use those flames not to burn down the world around him, but to light the way for others. That is not a small thing. That is a legacy. That is legacy work. That is Rosa Parks level courage translated into the modern day. I'm not going to give it all away right now because you're going to want to hear it directly from him. But I will tell you this. By this time this episode is over, you will be thinking about mental health differently. You will be thinking about your community differently. And if you let it, you will be thinking about yourself differently. So settle in, do not touch that remote. Tell a friend to tune in right now because this is the kind of conversations Black America needs and the kind of conversation that all America deserves to witness. This is America in Black and White, Season 4, Episode 101, and we're just getting started. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Jamarne to the stage. Hello,
Hello,
sir.
sir. Good evening, Charles. How are you?
Excellent. Good to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So, is there anything you'd like to say to the audience before we started? Or you
Um,
getting feedback?
What happened?
You getting feedback?
Oh, oh dear. Uh-oh. Something wrong with the sound or something?
I think so. 'Cause that's is that on your side? Can you hear it, Dylan?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not sure what's going on. Huh.
Okay. Well, so like I said, is there anything you want to say before to the audience before we get into the show?
So, my only hope is that by the end of this interview is that I could change a few perspectives on the concept of mental health and what it means to be an advocate for voices who are marginalized and feel as if they don't have anyone to speak up for them.
Yes, sir. And I'm more than sure that we're going to make that happen. And so I like to start with what I call, well, I like to let the audience get the opportunity to learn who Jamarne was before you became the great person you are now. And so I call this your life story and origins.
Yeah.
So can you tell us? Take us back to the very beginning. Where did you grow up? And what was that world like for young Jamarne?
Yeah. So to start, I am a native of the South Bronx, and that's where I was born. That's where I grew up for the first 12 years of my life. And if you know anything about the South Bronx, that's actually one of the poorest communities in New York City overall, and in the South Bronx itself. There's a lot of inequality and poverty, and it's very well reflected in the school system as well too. But to get into the gist of it, when I was a young child growing up, I struggled with these learning disabilities. I had autism spectrum disorder, which actually was not discovered until I reached my adult years. But short story short, it did interfere with my ability to exist in a world that's built for neurotypical people and not neurodivergent people. So when you're having social interactions with people, you may have trouble processing the information. You might have trouble following instructions. And if we know anything about that, you usually end up unemployed. You don't establish a successful relationship, whether it's romantic or professional or anything of that matter. And also, I will say that to make matters a bit worse, when I was 12 years old, my adoptive mother, she died of cancer. So after that, I was forced to relocate to the city of Inglewood in New Jersey. So I grew up there for the next 6 years of my life. And I will say things were very difficult out there. The adjustment process was not successful, and it exacerbated my mental health to the point that I ended up with depression and anxiety and post-traumatic stress disorder. So the question is that what was I supposed to do to recover? The mental health resources out there in New Jersey, they're very anemic and they're inadequate. So I kind of got pushed to my breaking point because of all the stress, because I started struggling in school as well too, and that was something that I was not proud of at all, because I felt like I was letting myself down, I was letting everybody else down. I had these dreams and aspirations of actually becoming a medical doctor. Now, obviously that didn't happen, but again, the disappointment and the struggle and the strife, it pushed me to my breaking point. I ended up dropping out of high school over there, and then I moved back over to New York City at the age of 18 back in 2012. So I was so for like the next decade or something, I was like navigating all these clinical and housing and mental health programs in New York City. And during that time, I was like trying to, I was trying to think of a way to unleash my inner voice and find a way to give back to others. So fast forward in 2023, I arrived at the Fountain House and I decided that, I think I could put my talents to good use here at this organization. And I was also looking for a way to give back because I know what it's like to feel isolated, shamed, shunned, and stigmatized. And I don't desire to see anyone else go through or experience what I went through. So that's just a little bit of my background.
So, what is the earliest memory you have that looking back now, you recognize as defining as to who you were going to become?
So if we know one thing about mental health, it's often stigmatized. It's a taboo subject, especially if you're Black and a man in America, because they tell you, you're not supposed to talk about that, or if you do talk about that, you're crazy, or you have a spiritual problem, or you need to be reformed, you need to be fixed, or you need to seek some kind of spiritual help or something like that. Which I have to say, hearing those type of comments really, it lit a fire in me. Because I'm like, no, I don't have a spiritual problem. I don't. I know there's nothing wrong with me spiritually. But the thing about mental illness is that it's not the spirit, it's not the demons or anything. I view it as people having a lack of access to the supports that they need. And if you offer people help and assistance and you break down these barriers that prevent them from excelling in the first place, you'll be surprised at how far someone can go. They can spread their wings and they can soar and they can fly. They can reach their goals. And an organization and a nonprofit like Fountain House makes that entirely possible.
So describe the community you were raised in. What did it feel like to belong to that place? And what did it teach you that no classroom ever could?
Okay, so like I said, I grew up in the South Bronx, majority minority community, but I always felt like, despite having the same skin color and the same background as most of the kids, I felt like I just didn't fit in because I always came across as this socially awkward individual who was kind of like, he's so quiet, or he's so nerdy, or he just keeps to himself or anything. Like, he's just weird. And as I navigated my childhood, for some reason, I guess I just harbored these beliefs, and I was like, wow, why is it so difficult for me to make friends or something? Or why does it feel like I'm the odd man out everywhere I go? And, it's the same thing in Inglewood. I felt like the odd man out. And I think that's been the story of my life. I've always felt like the oddball in society who, he's weird. I mean, he's smart, but he's weird. He's not normal. There's something wrong with him. And me struggling in school also reinforced these negative beliefs that I had. It's like, now I'm beginning to think that they actually are smarter than me because now I'm struggling and I'm falling behind. I don't know what it was. But I will say about living in New Jersey and living in the South Bronx, I keep saying that if I had adequate support systems from the very beginning, then I don't think, half of the things that I was describing would have happened to me or anybody else who's going through a similar crisis as I am. That's one thing that's one thing that life could teach me that the classroom could never teach me. Because everyone says that, certain people are like natural born killers and that they are a product of their own choices. And that is not always true. Sometimes the environment is a major influence in who you are and who you become. It's not always about choice. And it's something in the year 2026, people still believe this. I think it's outdated. And that's another stereotype that I'm trying to challenge to the best of my ability.
Well, what's interesting, and when I listen to you say that, the interesting thing that stick out most to me is the fact that you use the terms awkward and different and not fitting in and things of that nature. is that something that happened in the environment that actually caused you to feel that way?
I would say whenever I was like interacting with kids my own age, kids. Something special about children is that they can kind of detect differences early on that other people can't, and they always say, "Ooh, he's weird. Stay away from him." Or it's like, "Oh gosh, he talks funny," or like he looks funny, he dresses funny, or the typical stuff that they say, like the R word or stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh wow. So, who in your family or immediate circle planted the first seeds of service, advocacy, or community mindfulness in you?
So this is going to be a bit of a weird answer, but I would say it's like a double-edged sword because I said I grew up in a family where this was stigmatized. This is often taboo. So their negativity actually planted the seeds for me to become who I am today.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's just the opposite. And so, was this like a natural thing to you to take it and make this a positive?
I would absolutely say so. Yeah, I agree.
Mm. So, what were your earliest dreams and aspirations as a child? What did young Jamarne think he was going to do with his life?
I had all the aspirations and the dreams in the world. I thought that I was going to end up becoming a medical doctor one of these days. I was going to go to a prestigious, elite, world-class university or something and earn a medical degree there. And then I become the next, I guess you could say the next Ben Carson or something like that. Now, like I said, that didn't happen because life happened and obstacles got in the way. But yeah.
So, as a mental health advocate today, I mean, do you still have those aspirations, or are you just going to kind of like feel your way through and maybe make a change?
So the thing is that although I am not a medical doctor, I will say that I am satisfied with the work that I am doing thus far at Fountain House because in a way I'm helping people even though I'm not prescribing pills or I'm not doing operations or I'm not making diagnostics or anything like that, which is very interesting because about Fountain House, we actually don't use diagnostics there. And, hopefully hopefully I could get to talk a little bit about Fountain House during the duration of this interview too.
Yes, you will.
Yeah.
So were there specific challenges in your upbringing, like economic, social, or personal, that you navigated early on, and how did you make sense of them as a young person?
So my adoptive mother, God rest her soul, she was a postal worker at the United States Post Office for like many years, and then shortly after she retired, she actually adopted me, and I do remember growing up that we didn't have very much, and it hit me from like a very young age. It's like, ooh, are we struggling or something, or are we poor or something? Because I used to compare myself to other kids all the time when I was growing up, and I'm looking at my classmates, and it's like they have like the latest Jordans, they have like the latest video game or something. Like everyone at school is always talking about Call of Duty or Nikes, or they have these Laker jerseys or these Knicks jerseys and all these top-notch fashion gears or something like that. And then I'm looking at myself and I'm like, wait a second, I'm not keeping up with them. I'm not keeping up with the Joneses, if we're familiar with that term. So I was like, gosh, I think we're really, really down in the doldrums or something.
So, did you ever talk to your mother about this?
I never. So I never questioned her about it. I didn't feel comfortable asking, but it hit me in a way because she was always like, we have these bills to pay and we have this to pay and that to pay. I have to keep these lights on. I have to keep this roof over the both of our heads, and your needs will always come first. And you don't worry about what everybody else has because you're not going to want to be like everybody else anyway when you get older. So I think that's what she was trying to teach me in essence. Yeah.
Okay. So, what values did the people who raised you instill in you? And which of those values have you proven most indispensable in your adult work?
One of those values is hard work because I think we all know, the world doesn't necessarily hand you anything. You have to earn it. So hard work is like the first one. The second one is learning how to advocate for yourself and others because this world, unfortunately, will not do that, especially if you have a mental illness or some kind of disability. So those are like two values I took away growing up.
Was there a teacher, coach, mentor, or community figure outside of your home who saw something in you and spoke life into you? And if so, tell us about them.
Ooh. Wow. Could it be somebody at work too by any chance? Or okay.
Yes.
Okay. So this is interesting because because shortly after I came into Fountain House, I met Yuselfi. She's the clubhouse director of the Bronx location of the Fountain House, and when I first came in, I guess I was a little shy when I first came into Fountain House. I was quiet. I wasn't saying too much, and it took a while for me to evolve and adapt to the setting because it's a little different from where I was before in terms of mental health settings. So over time, I think I started to change. I guess I started to speak up more. I became more engaged and more involved, and then eventually she took note of this, and she cultivated my interest. She noticed that through my actions and behavior, I was like very well versed in terms of public speaking. So she put me on the executive director's community programs and facilities team at the downtown location of Fountain House, which is at 47th Street. So now I'm on the executive director's team, and then I'm starting to get connected to all the other senior leaders and directors at that same location. So Yuselfi saw something in me that I probably didn't see in myself at the beginnings. So that's how that worked out.
Growing up, where and how did shape your understanding of race, identity, and what it means to be Black in America?
Sorry, could you repeat that question again? Sorry.
How did growing up, where and how you did shape your understanding of race, identity, and what it means to be Black in America?
For me, everything is it's like a matter of the haves and the have-nots. So, because the high school that I went to, it's called the Academies at Inglewood. It was in Inglewood, Bergen County, New Jersey. So, when I went there, and I noticed that that a lot of my classmates were like very affluent. They were like well off or something like that, and I even noticed that they were also. I was held to standards that they were not held to, especially in the classroom. So, but I mean, I could go deeper into it, but I mean, it's kind of a it's kind of an uncomfortable subject.
Okay, so then there was just unfair treatment.
I would say so, definitely.
Wow. So as you think about this today, because now that you're at Fountain House and right now you're doing good work there, do you ever think back as to how this impeded or made your life better?
I would say that if I found I keep telling myself, an organization like Fountain House, I wish I found it like 10 years earlier than I did. Because if I found it like a lot earlier, like I said, I think the differences would have exceeded far beyond where I'm at today in terms of my life trajectory.
Is there a single moment, a conversation, an event, or an experience from your early life that you could point to as the moment you knew your life was going to be about serving other people?
It's when I had my mental meltdown at the age of 17. So I just, when you have a meltdown and you go into this psychosis and you feel like you lose control over you're losing control of everything, and you're just overwhelmed, and you just let your emotions fly. I won't say too much about what happened that day, but that was the moment I realized. I was like, wow, it feels like, the walls are closing in. I've got nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, nowhere to reach out for help. And yeah, when people get overwhelmed by their social circumstances, that's usually what happens. They just flip out.
Mm. So let's talk about your personal adversity and transformation. Every powerful story has a valley,
Right.
a low point. Without oversharing anything you're not ready to share, can you take us to yours? What did that season of your life look like and feels like?
It felt like complete and total despair. Um, like if you feel hopeless and you feel defeated, and like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. Like everything is just closed off, and it's just complete darkness.
Mhm.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, what happened to you at 17,
Yeah.
and we look at today's time, it's like now in our communities, the Black communities, that mental health, especially in young Black men, is like really coming to light. It's showing itself. What are some things that you can share with some people that are out there in the audience listening that maybe they should get some signs and maybe try to do some things to make their life better?
The first thing I would say is that, if you feel like you are alone, I want you to know that you are not alone. There is, everyone, I think, has at least one person that they could call an ally, an advocate, or a friend out there who is probably willing to lend like a helping hand or something like that.
Mm. Just let me. I want you to hold on 1 second here. Let me see if I can do something about this feedback.
Yeah.
Hold on. Okay. Good, better. A little bit.
Yeah.
When you were in the deepest part of your struggle, what or who kept you anchored, and what stopped you from giving up completely?
Ooh. Okay, this is a tough one because uh, I have to say it was a matter of self control for the most part.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I know people have various influences for staying grounded. Some will say faith, some will say family. For me, I felt like I had to rely on myself. It's self control. So if I felt like something was going to slip, sometimes I would just have to isolate, just hide, or just separate from the environment or something like that.
Wow. But it seems like there was this resilience and this inner strength is what it seems like you had, that actually brought you through. And so when you just think about that, how does that make you feel that you have something in you that helps you a whole lot?
So about the self control. While some people are able to exhibit the self control, I also know that there are others out there who probably would have trouble with it. Well, that's part of the reason why I do what I do, because I know not some people may have trouble with resilience. I mean, just because one person can maintain it doesn't mean that the next person will. So that's why I do the outreach with the Fountain House, and I do the training and the development and all this other stuff. So it's that other people don't have to struggle the way I did, because just because I suffered or I struggled does not mean that the next person deserves to go through that.
Mm-hmm. So you could say spirituality or your sense of higher purpose play into your survival and your eventual breakthrough.
So you might be surprised to know I'm actually not a church goer or a person of faith, actually. Yeah.
So it was just you.
I would definitely say so. It was like the inner ego.
Tell us about that. Because, again, that means that you got a really strong faith, a strong belief within yourself, or something that's making you a stronger person.
It's, it's like having a second voice or something like that. So, like, when I'm in a social situation and I detect that something's about to go wrong, my conscience tells me, just walk away, walk away or turn around, take a detour. Because I think some of us have that inner voice that has us think second thoughts about a situation before it happens.
Mm-hmm. So what was the first sign, the first crack of light that told you things were going to change? And what did that moment feel like?
So the exact date was June 20th, 2023. And that was actually my first day at the Fountain House. So when I walked in and I saw a few individuals at the reception desk, and they greeted me, and I asked, "Oh, hi, do you work here?" And they said, "No, we're actually members of the clubhouse." And I was like, "Members? What do you mean?" It's like, "No, well, we're here because we want to be here. We're members and we're volunteering." And I was like, "Wait, they actually have you working at the reception desk?" And I was kind of surprised by that, because like I said about the conversation regarding mental health, there's always these stereotypes that if you have a mental illness, you're not capable of contributing anything into society. But immediately when I walked in and I saw that right there, I was like, wow, that just immediately smashed the stereotype that I had been carrying about myself and others for a long time. It's like they actually were involved, and I was like, you know what? I think this is a place where I also want to be, and where I also want to contribute long term too. So I would say that was probably the breaking point. Because if I saw others doing it, then it gave me the confidence that I needed to also, stay engaged.
Right. So then over a period of time, as you were doing this, and you felt like you could do this, what were some of the things that you were thinking internally as you started to do the work that you were doing?
At first, I had my doubts as usual. I was like, am I fit for this position and what I'm doing, or am I going to make a mistake? It's like, I don't want to embarrass myself or the organization or my peers or anybody else around me or anything like that. It's always a matter of self-doubt, because sometimes when you're in a position, you do question that if you deserve to be there, or if you should have changed course or anything. And again, the members of the Fountain House were also my greatest inspiration, because when I saw them tackling their challenges and getting involved in doing things that society would not expect of them, it was like, yeah, I'm definitely in the right place. I think I can definitely do this. I think I can stay here and rise to the occasion.
Transformation is not a single event. It's a process. The actual process of changing, healing, and rebuilding look like for you day to day?
Sorry, could you repeat that again? Sorry.
What did the actual process of changing, healing, and rebuilding look like for you day to day?
So, Fountain House has this. We have something over here that we call a community support or something like that. So, like when a member of the clubhouse is like experiencing a crisis or a situation in which they need help, I see other members and other staff members. They come together and they help that person. So, by seeing them uplift each other and encourage one another when they're experiencing trouble, that actually in a way contributes a lot to my transformation as an individual. Because when I see, yeah, when I see that they're uplifting each other and they're not judging one another, it gives me the feeling that, oh wow, if they contribute to each other's growth around here, uh then it should not be an uncomfortable process in this type of setting or anything.
When you think about mental health and you think about the stigmatizing about mental health, and you're there in the house, what was the changing point that made you that much more comfortable, that much more confident in what your life would be, and you could keep mental health as a general because it's not a stigma for you anymore?
Um, uh, uh, Charles, could you repeat that again? Sorry, the sound is a little.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, just in kicking the stigma of mental health.
Yeah.
Okay. How does that make you feel right now today when you look back as to where you started and where you are now?
So, uh, okay, this is a this is a bit of a tough one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll move on to the next question.
Yeah.
Were there people who doubted you, wrote you off, or couldn't see who you were becoming? How did you navigate their voices, internal or external?
So I remember growing up, I was often told that, oh my goodness, why can't you, they say, why can't you do this right? Or why can't you score 100% like this person? Or if you keep making these mistakes, you'll never amount to anything in life. So it's all those negative voices that I was hearing a lot growing up as a kid. And sometimes I still hear them every now and then as an adult. So it's almost like, so remember when I told you that sometimes it feels like I have like a second voice or like an inner ego? So yeah. So the past version of myself and the present version of myself, they're constantly like in conflict with one another, and I'm like wondering which side of me is going to prevail today. Is it going to be the past or is it going to be the present? At a place like Fountain House, it helps ensure that the present wins over the past, because like I said, the environment is very encouraging. If you or another member were to make a mistake doing something, they don't necessarily scold you or punish you or yell at you or anything like that. But what they do is that they use this corrective feedback system where they just show you how to do something over and over again until you understand it or until you get it. So they're very patient. Yeah.
So at what point did you consciously decide to take what you had been through and use it as a tool to help other people rather than keep it profit?
Oh boy. So I will say, there was an event From it's actually a childhood event. It's not even present day. So when I was a kid, I didn't mention that I actually was in the church when I was younger, not as an adult, but when I was much younger. And the way that they criticized the subject of mental illness, I said it, it kind of lit a fire in me, kind of led me into a state of rage when I heard them saying that, if you have like an issue, if you have like a problem, it's spiritual, and then all things can be fixed through this spiritual fixing and everything. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, no, that's not the case. It's not a spiritual issue, and it's not necessarily a matter of trying to fix someone or reforming someone. It's all about access.
Mhm. So is that one of the reasons why you don't that you're not as religious or spiritually in the church?
Right. That's yeah, that's absolutely right. I found social institutions in general, not just the church, but a lot of our social institutions in general are actually very discouraging uh, with their attitudes towards individuals who have disabilities, whether they be physical or mental.
Right.
Yeah.
And I want to tell you that this is the thing that makes me so happy to have you on the show, is because there's so many different issues from the spiritual perspective, and this is one that people really don't talk about when it's probably the one that they make the worst.
Yeah.
Because everything is a we can pray away.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, oh, pray it away, tough it out, all that. And then sometimes unfortunately it's our own parents, and because I'm sure you've probably heard, if you don't stop crying, I'm gonna give you something to cry about.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So what do you know now to be part of your hardest season that you desperately needed someone to tell you when you were in the middle of it?
Did you say what did I need someone to tell me when I was like going through my darkest season?
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah. Um, hmm. It would have been useful to have someone say that, it's temporary, it's a phase. There is a way to overcome. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, like something encouraging rather than just saying that, well, when you tell someone that you have a problem, I notice that people often like to make comparisons. They'll sometimes say, well, you may be going through this, but someone else may have it worse, or you're just being dramatic, or you're being or you're not telling the truth about what you're going through. It's all those type of statements. Those are like, it's like toxic positivity. Like, you're trying to be positive, but at the same time you're still contributing to the person's strife by using those type of statements. So whenever
is that other passive aggressive behavior that they display? Is that ugly passive aggressive behavior that they're displaying?
I think so, definitely, because maybe mental health is an uncomfortable subject for them, and they would just, again, they would just rather not talk about it. I guess they just look for a way to get out of the conversation.
You could sit in with your younger self at the lowest point. What would you say? And do you think that younger version of you would have been able to receive it?
Younger version of me would have been able to receive it. No, probably not, because as I stated, when I was living in New Jersey, I noticed that their mental health resource system was very inadequate, and it was anemic. So that younger self of me that needed that support, I couldn't find that out there. I was only able to find it when I came back out to the city. So I came back out here more so as a survival tactic. It was like out of desperation because
Mhm.
I had to find a way to like run, and then if I couldn't run, then I had to crawl, and if I couldn't crawl, I had to scratch. I just had to do whatever it took to avoid falling into the black hole that I was in when I was living in Jersey.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So,
So,
how has
how has
surviving
surviving
and more
and
than
more than
surviving,
surviving,
transforming,
transforming,
changed the way
changed the
you
way you
show up
show up
in
in
relationships,
relationships,
in
in
fatherhood,
fatherhood,
in
in
community,
community,
and in
and in
service?
service?
Um, I would say, well, from a certain, I can't really talk about fatherhood because I don't have any children or anything. But from a service standpoint, I find that it makes it easier for me what I've been through to approach people with empathy more often and with the open mind and with open ears. So sometimes when someone's having an issue, they may just randomly walk up to me. They could walk up to anybody, but may just randomly walk up to me and they say, I'm going through this right now. I don't have anyone to talk to, or I'm experiencing this and I don't know what to do about that. And I tell them, I'm all ears. I mean, I'm willing to listen. So I don't judge. I just listen. And then when they're finished, if possible, this is not always, but if possible, I may try to offer a helpful solution or something like that.
Mm.
Mhm.
So,
So,
how has
how has
that
that
been
been
since you're
since you're
doing
doing
this by
this by
helping other
helping other
people
people
and helping
and
them to
helping them
get
to
through?
get through?
How has that
How has
been for
that been
you?
for you?
For me, I'd say that the work or the process is like mutually beneficial because you're giving the person in crisis an open mind and open ears, and you're not being judgmental towards them. But at the same time, by listening to them, you're also learning more and more about the disparities out there related to mental health. So it's like a learning experience for me, even if the situation may be unfortunate or sad for the most part.
Mm.
Mm.
Okay,
Okay,
so
so
let me
let me
transfer.
transfer.
Let's
Let's
transition
transition
over
over
to.
to
We're going to
we're
talk
gonna
about
talk
your
about your
mental health
mental health
advocacy
advocacy
and your
and
work
your
here
work
at
here at
Fountain
Fountain
House.
House.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
Mental
Mental
health
health
in the
in the
Black
Black
community is
community
still
is still
deeply
deeply
stigmatized.
stigmatized.
Yeah.
In your
In your
experience on the
experience on
front
the
lines
front
of
lines of
advocacy,
advocacy,
why do you
why do
think
you
that
think that
stigma has
stigma
been so
has been so
persistent
persistent
and so
and so
particularly
particularly
potent in
potent
Black
in Black
culture?
culture?
So the thing about mental illness is often the media, the politicians, we're often portrayed as erratic or irrational people who are overwhelmingly violent, and they so whenever you see those images or those pictures of somebody acting inappropriately in, let's say, the subway or something like that, or the person who's on the street corner talking to him or herself, they use those images and then they try to amplify it and they say, yeah, this is the representation of people with mental illness. That is not entirely true, because if you were to visit, if you're ever in New York and you visit one of the three Fountain House locations, the Bronx, Harlem, or Midtown, you will see we're not all like that, because again, we're all actively contributing to the functions of the clubhouse on a daily basis.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So,
So,
so as
so
you
as
think
you
about
think
that,
about
let
that,
me give you
let me
my
give you my
opinion.
opinion.
It
It
sounds like
sounds like
you're
you're
much more
much more
rational
rational
than they
than they
are
are
because you're
because you're
able to
able
see the
to see the
forest for the
forest for the
trees.
trees.
They
They
can't.
can't.
Just
Just
believe.
believe.
Well,
So,
So,
when did
when
you
did you
first
first
realize
realize
that your
that
own
your own
mental health
mental health
journey
journey
was
was
something you
something you
needed to
needed to
take
take
seriously?
seriously?
And
And
how did
how
you
did you
overcome your
overcome your
own
own
internalized
internalized
resistance
resistance
to
to
seeking help?
seeking help?
so it's interesting because at Fountain House, we don't use the clinical approach to treating individuals who have mental illness. So we actually focus on strengths and talents rather than the weaknesses or the limitations of the diagnostics. And we push self-sufficiency, self-efficacy, and independence. So it's kind of like we're sending the message out there. It's like, listen, the recovery, the way you want to recover, it's in your hands. The ball is in your court, and you decide how you want to reach your goals and what you want to do with that ball. So in a way, we're kind of pushing people to take the initiative in their own recovery, and it's a process that's directed by the members. So they come up with their own recovery goals, and they work with their social practitioner to help remove any barriers to achieve those goals. We're not necessarily telling people that you have to do this or you have to do that, or else you'll be punished. We're giving them the option to choose how they want to achieve their goals.
What does your mental health advocacy work look like in practical terms? And what does a day, a week, or a month of that work actually involve?
So there are a variety of things. There are a variety of functions that I perform as a mental health advocate. One of them is outreach. So we have this partners in care team that meets weekly on Tuesday. And what we do is that we reach out to other social service providers in the community. It could be medical providers, they could be psychiatrists, they could be education, employment agencies, or housing agencies. And we go out to these agencies. We deliver presentations about our clubhouse, and we also try to encourage them to send people with mental illness our way. So it's more like we're establishing these community connections and partnerships for the purpose of bringing more potential members into our community. But we also want people to become more aware about our clubhouse and the services that we offer. Because although we've been around for almost 80 years, the thing is that there's a significant chunk of the population out there. They don't know what fountain house is. They don't know what clubhouse is. They're completely unaware of it, and they're not completely aware of how it's an effective alternative compared to clinical settings.
What are specific programs, initiatives, or resources that you champion or have helped build to address mental health wellness in communities you say?
So I'm not, well, I mean, I wouldn't say I've built it, but I'm involved in it. So so aside from partners in care, there's also a training and development team at the Fountain House. So Fountain House was like the very first psychosocial clubhouse that serves individuals living with a serious mental illness. But there are over 380 other clubhouses across the globe that try to replicate and imitate the Fountain House model. So what we do is that we train staff and members from other clubhouses just like ours, and we say, in order to provide the best quality of service to your staff and your staff members, you should do this or you should do that. So these training and development sessions they're more geared towards helping other clubhouses function to the best of their ability, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. So you work specifically in communities where the concept of seeing a therapist or counselor can feel foreign, unaffordable, or even culturally threatening. How do you bridge that gap?
Bridge that gap. Okay. Well, one of the ways in which we actually do that is that we also have a communications team. So we reach out to journalists in the community every now and then too. So we may host interviews with them, and I actually took part in a Substack interview about 6 months ago, and I spoke about my experience along with another member of Fountain House. We spoke about our experiences navigating mental health and housing in the city, and again, in that interview, we said if you want to see what mental health looks like in action, not the typical stuff that you see in the movie or that you hear about in the paper or see on the television news, come visit us, come see us in action, and you will see that it is nothing that it's nothing that you should be demonizing or stigmatizing. And instead, it's something that you should appreciate even more, because we're defying the stereotypes that have been revolving around our lives for like the past several decades.
Mhm. When you were doing those that interview you did with Substack, what was the intent and the purpose of you guys doing that? Because I like the idea, but help our audience to understand what was that for.
That was it was partly informative and partly anecdotal because we wanted to tell people more about about a non-therapeutic alternative to mental health because mental health is a very broad term. Most of the time, a lot of people assume that it's just a clinical setting or this long-term outpatient setting where you're seeing the social worker or you're having something prescribed by a doctor or you're being institutionalized long-term in a psychiatric facility for like 10, 20 years of your life or something like that. That's not what mental health is completely all about because there are alternatives like Fountain House out here that do not use clinical approaches. We help our members by actually getting them involved in clubhouse activities. They work with other staff members. It's socially inclusive. It's non-hierarchical, and it's in a way it's also non-traditional too, because it doesn't operate the way that you would typically expect it to.
So, is there something you want Black men in particular to hear tonight? Something specific about seeking mental health support that you believe could change the trajectory of their lives?
So I'm gonna be very blunt with this one. If you're going through a problem and you try to talk to someone and they tell you, oh come on, you need to toughen up or you need to stop complaining. It's like, or if you talk about this, you're not a real man. First of all, ignore that person. You probably need to change your friend circle if you're hearing comments like that because you don't. The first step in recovery or the first step in achieving help is that you have to, you have to weed out the toxicity from your friend circle. So if you're being surrounded by people who are not very encouraging, that's actually going to be a barrier to recovery in the long term for you.
Mm.
As I had to learn the hard way. Yeah.
Right. So how did the COVID-19 pandemic and the racial reckoning of 2020 impact the mental health landscape in the communities you serve, and how has that impacted persistent?
So during COVID-19, everything was shut down. And, there is a crisis of loneliness and isolation in America today. And those are like two of the main drivers of a lot of the mental health problems that the people that we serve at Fountain House have. Because when you don't have community connections or if you don't have socialization, it actually exacerbates your condition. So something that, to my knowledge, that Fountain House did, sorry about the shaking camera, something to my knowledge that Fountain House did is that they established a virtual access department so that they could stay in touch with their members during the course of the pandemic, which I believe lasted about a year and a half or something like that. So that's a very long time to be sheltering in place, and only God knows what somebody could be doing behind closed doors.
Right. So what are the tools, practices, or daily habits that you personally rely on to maintain your own mental health and emotional wellness?
So something that we have at Fountain House, it's called social practice. And it's not necessarily the same thing as social work. So when we're talking about social practice, it means it's a form of environmental therapy in which you use the clubhouse environment to facilitate your own recovery. So I mentioned something about involvement in clubhouse units. So we have something called a work order day, which is completely voluntary. The members get to pick and choose which task they want to complete, and they are tailored to their interest and their strengths. So they could do a culinary, which is kitchen duty. They could do tours, enrollment, orientation. They could get involved in research. They could also help plan a weekend and evening extended hour events. They could also get involved in horticulture and gardening. There's a variety of tasks that anyone can do. as you probably know by now, I'm involved in a lot of the administrative stuff, like the training and development of the partners in care. So whatever you choose to do there's always something that someone can bring to the table. And again, we don't focus on labels. We don't focus on punishment or sanctions or any negativity. We don't say, "Oh, you didn't do this right. What are you doing?" It's none of that. So,
what is the most powerful transformation you have witnessed in someone you've walked with alongside through a mental health crisis? And what did that teach you about the human capacity to heal?
So, So I'm not gonna say any names for the purposes of confidentiality, but there is one person in particular. I think I spoke with him one time, and he told me about his how difficult his childhood was because he's like the oldest in a family of like multiple siblings. I don't exactly remember how many siblings he said he had, but it's a large family, and in those type of families, sometimes you have to act as a second parent sometimes, because if the mother and the father are not around, or if there is a parent missing, then you have to assume all responsibility. So not only are you taking care of yourself and looking after yourself, but you also have additional people who are depending on you until that other parent or guardian or whoever it is that's looking after them gets home. And he says it took a bit of a toll on him because it ingrained this belief in him that I'm not supposed to ask for help. I'm supposed to handle my business like a man. And if I ask for help, then people are going to think I'm just lazy, or people are going to think I'm too needy or something like that. And I remember him telling me that experience shaped who he was, and that's why he had a hard time trusting people and learning how to collaborate with people, because for his whole life he had been so used to doing everything by himself, or by himself for the sake of others, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Oh, wow. What resources, books, organizations, hotlines, apps, or community programs would you point our viewers right now if they are someone they love is struggling?
So right off the top of my head, I know there's the 988 hotline. And then, speaking as of which, I didn't mention this, but I am on Fountain House's policy and advocacy team too. So that what they do is that they arrange these grassroots events in the community, such as Lobby Day. So we've been upstate to Albany to lobby for the passage of Daniel's Law. And Daniel's Law was named after Daniel Prude. He was a young man in Rochester, New York. Unfortunately, he died because he had an interaction with law enforcement in 2020. He was experiencing a mental health crisis, and unfortunately, when you're going through crisis, the primary point of contact is almost always going to be law enforcement. And if we know something about law enforcement, a lot of the LEOs out here, they're not really properly equipped to help or assist someone going through a mental health crisis. So in response to that, we've been trying to persuade lawmakers to pass Daniel's Law, in which instead of having the police be the primary point of contact, it could be a certified clinician or someone else who has experience dealing with mental health.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So how has that been going? Because I know that means that you've got to get the state involved, and they've got to legislate and go through all that process.
It's a lengthy process because a couple of weeks ago we had a lobbying meeting, and they said that it's currently in how should I say this? Currently in rotation, so it's moving through the legislatures, because first you have to introduce it, then you have to find co-sponsors, then you have to pass it through a bunch of committees and everything, and so it's rotating right now. We're still waiting on updates, but we're hoping that this can become an official statewide law, so that no one else will become a Daniel Prude in a tragic sense.
Let's move over to your work in training, development, and workforce readiness. Walk us through your training and development work. How did you get into this space? And what gap are you trying to fill when you began?
So the training and development, it's really Fountain House trying to help other clubhouses improve the service that they offer to their members and to their staff as well. So I recently took part in a I guess you could say it was a director's seminar at Genesis Clubhouse in Worcester, Massachusetts. So you had a bunch of clubhouse directors from North America. That's mostly the United States and Canada. We gathered at Worcester, and they all raised a bunch of issues related to their clubhouse function. So some people said that, well, I'm having trouble getting members engaged, or I'm having a low average daily attendance or something like that, or I have a auspice agency that is not completely in touch with the needs of the clubhouse community, or we have several members of the board of directors who seem distant or uninterested in what's going on. So they raised a bunch of issues, and we were facilitating these training sessions to offer solutions on what could be done to help alleviate these problems that these clubhouse directors are facing. So training and development is really to help other professionals who work in a clubhouse setting to troubleshoot whatever internal or external issues they may be facing.
Mm-hmm. So who do you train? How do you identify the people in communities who most need what you offer?
So during training and development sessions, the staff members and their clubhouse members, they come to us, or we may go to them, either or. We sit them down for an introductory session, and they talk about the problems they've been experiencing lately, and then we listen to them. And myself and the director of training and the associate director, we pinpoint these problems, we just take notes, and we decide, we help write out a plan of action of what they should do going forward to help resolve these issues.
So when you design a program from scratch, what's your philosophy? What must every program reveal in order to actually work?
When you're working for a nonprofit organization, especially a clubhouse, you do have to remember that we always tell the directors and the staff that at the end of the day, the clubhouse is a member-centered organization. So you have to remember it's about the member and their needs first, and not necessarily always about you. So if there is a problem in the clubhouse, we always place an emphasis on a decentralized decision making. So you consult the concerns of your staff as well as the clubhouse members, and you get them together. Maybe you want to sit them down in a room for at least an hour, and you host this town hall style meeting. And you say, well, does anyone have any concerns about problem ABC or problem XYZ? And then you take the feedback, and then the unit directors who work underneath the clubhouse director, they consult, they gather, or they meet with each other, and they discuss where they should go from there. And then, it's like reading the temperature in the room, because you can't necessarily make a decision without everyone's input. But once that's done, as I said, they decide where to go from there.
So what are the core skills, hard and soft, that you believe every person from an underserved community needs to compete and thrive in today's workforce?
You said you were talking about the skills?
Yes.
Skills too. Oof. Well, I will have to say that first and foremost, there's always this pressure, to be excellent or something like that, because you can't really afford to make the same mistakes that other people make, especially if you want to, put a racial lens on it. because another person could make a mistake, and let's say they get off or they get away with it. You can't necessarily do that yourself, because it's like if you make one mistake, or like if you leave like the smallest gap open, it's a recipe for disaster. So you always have to cover your tracks, make sure that your I's are dotted, your T's are crossed, and your A's are slanted, if that makes any sense.
Can you share a success story? Someone whose life trajectory changed because of training or mentorship you provided, and what did that feel like to witness?
Mm, oof. Mm. Oh boy. Mm. So there was one other individual. I mean, I spoke about the individual who came from the family with the multiple siblings and everything. But there's also one individual I met at a global clubhouse conference last year in Florida, and she kind of went through some of the similar things that I went through. She had issues with learning disabilities and something like that, and was always struggling in the classroom. And she had told me that one time she had a conversation with her guidance counselor, and she talked about aspirations of wanting to get a PhD or a doctoral degree. And the guidance counselor said the most inflammatory thing to her ever. He said that, you shouldn't aim so high because, first of all, you seem crazy. So why are you even aiming high? Why are you aiming that high? You should try to be yes, he actually said that. Yeah. On account of the person that I spoke with. This was what was actually said. You shouldn't aim so high. You should be a little bit more realistic. Maybe college is not right for you. Maybe you should put that in your rear view mirror and not put that forward. And again, these are the types of things that we're confronted with constantly. Now the good news is that oh wait, the good news is that at the conference she actually got up on stage and she said, I'd like to tell that guidance counselor, to stuff it, if you know what I mean. Because I'm standing here today with that degree that he said I would never get. And the whole room erupted in applause. Yeah.
Well, they should have, because anybody that's trying to be that denigrating is crazy.
Yeah.
How do you address the psychological and emotional barriers, imposter syndrome, self-doubt, trauma that often block people from taking full advantage of workforce readiness programs?
Something that we offer at Fountain House, we actually have three types of employment services that we offer. So since we're talking about workforce readiness, there's transitional employment, that is also known as TE, and it's temporary, it's part-time, it lasts anywhere from 6 to 9 months. Now, the thing about transitional employment is that there's no traditional interview process required. Instead, a member of the clubhouse, they'll walk up to their social practitioner and they will say, oh, hey, I saw that, Barclays Center or Yankee Stadium, or they have this opening and I'm interested. So they express a direct interest in working. And then what they do is that they have to fill out a couple of papers. They have to tell Social Security or HRA that, they're going to be involved in this transitional employment so that their benefits don't get cut off. And the only thing that you really need for transitional employment, like I said, you just need to be willing to work. And the clubhouse staff will provide direct support to you if you're having, some kind of trouble or anything. And we always say, if you call out sick, like if an emergency happens and you need to take the day off, or if something comes up, let your social practitioner know so that your practitioner can fill in for you at the site, because that work still has to get done even if you're not there. And a second type of employment service that we offer is called supported employment. So this is also this also has the social practitioner providing support to the member, but the main difference is that no, sorry, the main difference is that supported employment is more long term. It could be full time, it could be part time, but it's not temporary. Position is more long term, and supported employment often leads as a bridge to competitive employment, and that is where the regular job interview process would come in. You have to fill out the application, write the cover letter, write the resume, and we do have a education and employment center at Fountain House that will help you gather these documents in case you do want to transition from supported employment to competitive employment.
Wow.
Yeah.
So is it like you and other workers like yourself that are doing all this work, or do you guys bring in other people to do this?
It's so I'm not necessarily directly involved in the employment services because I think I mentioned at the clubhouse is divided into several units that perform a specific function or a specific task. So for me, like I said, for me, I'm in policy advocacy, training, development, partners in care, and the executive director's leadership team. But it's not. But employment services, I have no involvement in that, so I can't really speak too much as to how that goes, except for what I just said.
Okay. So can you tell us how do you measure the impact of your training work? What does success look like to you? And is it always what you expected?
So success, it's to each his own. It's it's like a social construct. What success looks like in one person is going to be much different in the next person. So success for one person could be, I'm alive. I got out of bed this morning. I came to Fountain House. I'm here. That could be success for one person. That would be more than enough. Now, for the next person, success could be, I had these goals to go back to school. I obtained my degree, and that too is an example of success. Then you could have another person who, landed a full-time job, and that we also count as success. So it varies from one person to the next. It's not a straight line definition, and it doesn't have like a one size fits all approach.
So what is the relationship between mental health and workforce readiness in your view? And how do you integrate both dimensions in what you teach?
So recently, I was, myself and a couple of staff members at Fountain House, we delivered this presentation on loneliness and isolation in the workplace, and we did it at an organization called Sprott. So Sprott is it's a private company, private corporation, private entity based in New York, and one of the donors who constantly gives to our organization works there too. So we went out there, we spoke about loneliness and isolation in the workplace because it happens there too. I mean, it doesn't just happen at school, it doesn't just happen in the family. It's also a problem at work. And unfortunately, when you try to bring that up at work, you may face the same stigma that you would face anywhere else. They would say, listen, stop talking about that, okay? Get back to work. And they say that results are much more important than what's going on in your head right now or whatever it is that you're trying to make up. So yeah.
Well, what do employers and institutions need to understand about the untapped talent that exists in underserved communities, and how can they do better?
So, we often place an emphasis on employers trying to provide accommodations for people who may have mental or physical disabilities. For the most part, it's like we try to get them to understand that sometimes when you have a debilitating condition, it may make it a bit more difficult for you to meet the employer's goals or to help the company move forward sometimes. So you have to be understanding of that, because you can't place unrealistic expectations on someone who you know is not, someone who you know is probably not 100% healthy. Because that's like throwing somebody out there into the wilderness without without any armor on them, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And so, do they expect you guys, when you put these folks together for workforce readiness, do they expect you to have them at a particular level? Or maybe at a top tier level to fill a job.
So when we, in order to establish community partnerships with these employers, again, this is where the partners in care and the outreach comes into play. We reach out to these social service providers and we tell them, listen, the population of individuals that we work with, they have serious mental illness. It may affect their ability to do the job at the level that you're looking for. So we want you to be aware of this and be mindful of this when they come to you or when they start working for you. Because awareness is everything. Communication is key when it comes to this situation.
Right. So if you take this unlimited resources for 12 months, what training and development programs would you build right now, and what problem would it solve?
It's okay. So something that we're actually currently working on is it's me and a group of other individuals. The Bronx location of Fountain House, they're expected to move into a new location by the end of this decade or like early next decade, because the city has been pressuring Fountain House, Bronx Clubhouse, to get their membership numbers up. And one of the ideas that we thought of is like, we should put like a art gallery right next to the Fountain House Bronx Clubhouse. And this would function as a social enterprise. So like a social enterprise is like a business in the community that provides employment opportunities to people who suffer from serious mental illness, because a lot of businesses, they do believe in the concept of social responsibility, where they have this ethical or moral obligation to help members of the community who are less fortunate. So they believe in improving the lives and the well-beings of individuals who are less fortunate. And I know that a lot of people at the Bronx love to do art. So we're thinking about building this art gallery or this next door mural where they could get involved and they could get paid to do whatever it is that they want there. So that's something, it's not necessarily for like the next 12 months. This is actually more of a long-term thing. So it's going to take like a number of years to actually plan all of this out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in closing, can you leave our audience with some words of wisdom and encouragement, some things that need to know about mental health, how they can connect with you via social media, your website, or something about Clubhouse that you'd like to know?
If you want to know more information about Fountain House, you can find us on our website. I think that's https www.fountainhouse.org. I also say, if you know someone, we currently have 4 locations. So there's Midtown Manhattan on 47th Street. There's the Bronx. There's Harlem, but there's also one on the West Coast in Hollywood near the Los Angeles area. If you or someone you know in that area has a serious mental illness, they're older than 18. You have to be 18 and up. They have a serious mental illness. And if you know that the person does not have like a recent history of violence and they have a clinician who can fill out an attestation form for them, you can send them to one of those 4 locations. If they're interested in getting involved, if they're seeking relationship, if they're interested in help with entitlements and benefits in housing, health and wellness, or education or employment, then Fountain House may be the place for them. But again, it's up to the individual. They have to be willing to be there and they have to want to be there.
So do you have any words of wisdom and encouragement for them?
So so for this part, I would say, If someone is having an issue, they're having a mental issue, and they're coming to you, opening up to you about their problems, don't judge. Keep an open mind, have open ears. And I always say, don't necessarily listen to just respond, but listen to think and gather information instead of outright responding.
Well, in closing, I'm gonna close out. I have a monologue that I'm gonna do, but when I close the show, you have a few minutes to stick around.
Yes.
Okay. I want to thank all of our guests in our audience that are here and watching the show. I appreciate you for being here because this message is very important for the outreach to all in our communities, especially those in underserved and marginalized communities. And if you know anyone that needs any assistance whatsoever, please help them. That is the whole purpose. Please reach out and help. In closing, Jamarne McGill, on behalf of everyone here at American Black and White, and on behalf of every single person who is watching tonight and needed to hear every word you just shared. Thank you. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for your vulnerability. And thank you for the work you do every single day. Often without fanfare, often without recognition, simply because you have been called to do it. And you have answered. This is a rare and beautiful thing. If you have been watching this episode tonight, here's what I need you to take with you when you close the screen or turn off the television. We talked about resilience. And what we learned tonight is that resilience is not the absence of pain. It is a decision to use pain as a fuel. We talked about mental health. And what we learned tonight is that seeking help is not weakness. Seeking help is one of the bravest things a human being can do. We talked about community service. And what we learned tonight is that community is not a place. It is a commitment. We look through the lens of Jamarne McGill's life. Is that one person's principle refusal to accept the status quo can change the entire trajectory of history. So here's a call to action tonight. Check on yourself, not just on other people, on yourself. Ask yourself, honestly, how am I doing? And if the answer is not great, reach out. Talk to someone. Find a resource. You deserve that care. Second, get involved in your community. It doesn't have to be grand. It can be a phone call, a meal, a conversation, showing up to a meeting, volunteering on Saturday, a month. Small acts of consistent service build something extraordinary over time. And third, support the outreach workers, the advocates, the community builders who are doing this work. They need your donations, your volunteer hours, your shares, and your amplification. Do not let them carry this weight alone. You can keep up with everything happening here on American Black and White. Subscribe to our channel. Follow us on all social media platforms at American Black and White. Share this episode and ring that notification bell so you never miss a moment of a season. There is so much more to come. I'm your host, Charles King. Until we meet again tomorrow night, remember this. Your story is not over. Your community still needs you. And Black America, all of America, is still writing its most important chapter. Good night. God bless. And we'll see you the next time on America in Black and White.